Cordelia has been one of the go-to units if you want a strong offensive lance user. Her presence in Fire Emblem Heroes has been strong pretty much since the release of the game, and she has continuously been touted as one of the best flyers in the game. Cordelia has a lot of things going for her that makes her very friendly for new players as well. As a unit, she brings so much value to a team on her own, and that is really important for players not looking to invest incredible amounts of resources into just one unit. In this video, we'll discuss how Cordelia has stayed relevant for so long and why she is a budget-friendly unit who is also one of the best in her class. Now, when Fire Emblem Heroes released back in February of 2017, we had a pretty good amount of Blue Lance flyers to choose from. Hinoka was and still is a 5-star exclusive with a really good 35 attack. Cordelia was a 4 to 5-star unit and also had a nice 35 attack. Both of them had a Brave Lance Plus as their weapon, and without skill inheritance, these two were pretty similar units, except for the fact that your chances of getting a Hinoka were a lot slimmer than getting a Cordelia. Catria was the other 4 to 5-star flyer, and we had a lot more defense than Cordelia but lost out on some attack and speed. As for 3 to 4-star units, we had a wide range of stat lines. S can match Cordelia's 35 attack but didn't have the speed. Shauna matched Cordelia's 35 speed but lacked attack. Poor Florina has a ton of extra res but really falls behind in attack and speed, which are both pretty important stats for this class. Last is Tsubaki, who has amazing speed and defense, but his base 25 attack is really bad and he's basically hitting people with a wet noodle. Remember, there was no skill inheritance to remedy this. As a side note, I've never noticed that Tsubaki and Cordelia share the exact same stat numbers, just distributed differently. I'm sure that has to be on purpose as a certain reference. Now, as you can see, Cordelia's standout traits are her amazing 35 attack and 35 speed, which are both tied for the highest in the group. Except no one else has both. Hinoka is close with 35 attack and 32 speed, but that leads into my next major point, in that Cordelia is much easier to get than Hinoka just based on percentages. If you wanted a Brave Lance flyer, well, Cordelia was probably most people's choice just because you couldn't get Hinoka in the first place. Now let's discuss what comes in Cordelia's base kit. Besides the amazing Brave Lance Plus, Cordelia also came with a very powerful Gale Force special. This was only available on one other unit, which was regular Sword Lyn. Gale Force is a 5-turn special, but if you charge it up and survive a battle, it allows Cordelia to move again. This synergizes really well with the Brave Lance since it's a powerful offensive weapon, good at taking down enemies. With Gale Force, Cordelia could potentially defeat 2 enemies in one turn, which is pretty awesome. Her A skill is Triangle Adept, and while it may not be the most powerful skill for every situation, it made Cordelia into a red slaying monster. If you were a veteran day 1 player, then you should remember that everyone was at least running one Sword Lord in Arena. They were very popular since basically almost every Fire Emblem main protagonist wields a sword, and of course, players are going to want to use their favorite characters. Marth, Roy, Lyn, Lucina, Chrom, Ryoma, Male, Corrin, etc. Red was a very popular color to see, so with Triangle Adept, Cordelia could be an amazing counter to these units. Personally, I still use Triangle Adept on Cordelia since it improves her bulk against red units, and that can be very useful in a lot of Grand Hero battles or special maps. Since skill inheritance came out, most people probably stopped using Triangle Adept, and the same applies to Pass, which has its uses but really just couldn't compete with other stronger skills. Speaking of skill inheritance, its introduction would start the rise of the one-shot meta that is still pretty relevant to this day. Basically, at the time with so little defensive skills, things like Brave Weapons and Death Blow were just doing so much extra damage that most units could not really stop them. Cordelia's inherent Brave Lance meant you didn't have to sacrifice another unit, and in the good old days where feathers weren't exactly easy to come by, this meant Cordelia was cheaper to build. Her 35 base attack was perfect for the Brave Lance anyway, so all you really needed to get was Death Blow or just the attack plus 3 A skill. Because Cordelia is so fast, she could actually still double some units after the -5 speed penalty of the Brave Lance. The fad of quad attacking sort of became a thing, but by and large is not an extremely reliable strategy in the arena. Admittedly, it's extremely useful in PvE content if you could get Cordelia to fight a tanky slow army unit. If everything goes right, she could actually fully charge Gale Force in 1 round of combat, and I'm pretty sure people abuse this to clear some Grand Hero battles. Still, the -5 speed penalty was a shame because it seemed like Cordelia was wasting her great base speed. The Brave Lance builds were super meta and are still amazing today, but Cordelia could soon get a possibly even better weapon. The Fire Sweep Lance was introduced rather early compared to its other melee counterparts. A Fire Sweep Sword did not come for a long time after, and we still don't even have a Fire Sweep Axe. I made a whole video talking about Fire Sweep builds for flyers, and you should check it out if you want some more details. Cordelia was at one point the premier user of the weapon. Fire Sweep weapons would only care about high attack and speed, and Cordelia's perfect 35-35 stat line was unquestionably the best for the job. It was at this point that Cordelia could separate herself from Hinoka and Est, who could both run a Brave Lance setup just as well. Their lower speed stats, however, just weren't as good for wielding the Fire Sweep Lance. Other fast lance flyers like Shauna, Katria, and Tsubaki had the speed, but had lower attack stats. In terms of just straight stat comparisons, Cordelia is the clear choice. At the time Fire Sweep Lance gets introduced, the arena meta was still pretty heavily focused on Vantage. If anything, it was still a skill that people really liked to use and it was annoying to deal with. Well, the Fire Sweep Lance counters Vantage completely, so the popularity of Fire Sweep Lance builds got some traction. Of course, everyone who was interested turned to Cordelia. To make things easier for players, Roderick, the wielder of the Fire Sweep Lance, got demoted to the 4 to 5 star pool. Availability is a huge factor in games like Heroes, so by not being locked to a 5-star exclusivity, people had a much better shot at getting themselves a Fire Sweep Lance for inheriting. While the Fire Sweep builds are still less common than Brave Weapon builds, it would have been even rarer without Roderick getting demoted. While Cordelia was riding the high of being the best Fire Sweep Lance user in the game, she did have competition eventually. Tana had 34 attack and 36 speed, which people argued was better for Fire Sweep builds since securing the follow-up attack was first priority. Shigude also gets added to this discussion with his 33 attack and 37 speed. Let me just say that all three of these units are very capable of using the Fire Sweep Lance. However, Tana is a 5-star exclusive unit, and Shigude got released much later despite being demoted to the 4 to 5 star pool. For a long time, Cordelia would still be most people's choice for the Fire Sweep Lance just due to availability. Now I figured it would be nice to showcase current builds for Cordelia in case any new players wanted to try building her. Her Brave Lance build is largely unchanged, but with Sacred Seals being a thing, an extra +3 attack doesn't hurt. If you don't have Death Blow, then attack +3 is a great budget option. As for alternative skills, Swift Sparrow can be used if you are fixated on getting Cordelia to quad attack as many units as she can. Gale Force can of course be used, just be aware of its long charge time. You can run the Heavy Blade Sacred Seal, but I would only recommend doing that if you get Cordelia attack buffs, along with using Death Blow 3 and a plus attack nature. For Fire Sweep Lance, Cordelia has some options, and this is just an example set. Again, watch my other video if you want a full breakdown of different skills you can use. Swift Sparrow or Life and Death should be her A skill to squeeze out as much attack and speed as possible. Darting Blow is a decent budget A skill as well, since speed is more important. Special can be Moonbow or Glimmer if you run Heavy Blade, otherwise go for Luna. Cordelia can run Gale Force here too, and you won't have to worry about inheriting it, which is pretty nice. Cordelia is the best budget flyer for a few great reasons. One is her insanely optimized offensive stat line. 35 attack and 35 speed has literally set a standard for good offensive spreads, and most people are always comparing units to these numbers. Even without getting a plus attack or plus speed nature, Cordelia will do amazingly well with an offensive build. Second reason is her availability. As we mentioned, Cordelia was a 4 to 5 star summon for all of year 1, which gave longtime players a lot of chances to get her randomly. With the year 2 summoning pool changes, Cordelia is now a 3 to 4 star unit, which is pretty insane. By not being a 5-star exclusive, it's easier to fish for your desired nature, and arena junkies can merge her to plus 10 by spending feathers instead of money. Also relevant is that one of her best weapons has been easier to get by not being on a 5-star exclusive. It should be noted that Roderick and his Fire Sweep Lance is also a 3 to 4 star summon now. Last reason is that Cordelia has so many different build options. She already comes with a Brave Lance and Gale Force, which saves you a ton of resources if you wanted either one. With 35 attack and speed, Cordelia is set to run any offensive build, and you could viably run her with the Slaying Lance, Slaying Spear, the new Harmonic Lance, and many other weapons. If Cordelia were to get a unique weapon, it would have to surpass her Brave Lance and Fire Sweep Lance builds, which means it would probably have to be insanely powerful. I really don't think she would get one anytime soon, but you never know. Overall, Cordelia brings a lot of power without being a 5-star exclusive unit. Good stats, good skills, and a huge ceiling of potential if you want to invest in her. For players not wanting to spend huge investment, she is one of the best performers that doesn't need a ton of extra help. If you happen to summon Cordelia, I really do suggest trying her out. She continues to stay relevant and is clearly one of the best non-5 stars in the game. That wraps up Flyer Week, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you missed any of these videos, I suggest checking them out. We talked about Hinoka and Camilla's new unique weapons, how to build a Fire Sweep Flyer, and also the power of the Wing Sword and Round Fire from Sheeta and Claire. For those watching this day of release, I will be talking about the new update and all its fun features, as well as a new banner which should be out tonight. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see you guys in that video.